Hey guys, it's Kirsten. So this image was just sent in for me to have a little bit of look at. It was shot in JPEG, also at a low resolution. So we're going to try to fix it as non-destructively as possible. So I think the best way maybe would be to go to filter and then camera raw filter. Okay, let's start from the top here. So it needs to be warmed up. Well, let's deal with the exposure first. So when you shoot in RAW, you're just shooting data. And so these sliders just go back and forth non-destructively, which is fascinating. So if you're just starting out, it's so important to shoot in RAW. Okay, so he's a little pink, so we can try to move, kind of play with these sliders a little bit. Bring up the contrast. I'm not going to touch the highlights because I really don't think it will matter too much. But I'm going to kind of go back and forth here and see what I need to just make it look good. Let's see if bringing the vibrance down a smidge. Actually, when in doubt, it would be a beautiful black and white picture, I'll be honest with you. Okay. Just bring the saturation down a little bit because it's really saturated. Warming it up. Okay, let's just leave it like that. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. Okay, so one thing I think, well, here, let's see. He's actually squinting a little bit, so I think what I'm going to do is go into Filter and then Liquify. Click on the Face tool over here, and we're just going to go with the eye height and bump that up. Let's see, 54. Let's go off on. That just makes at least the eyes look symmetrical, so they don't look too like he's squinting. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is File, Place Embedded. And let's see, I have a folder of overlays and I have some skies. Now, we don't want it to look super fake. I'm thinking of just if we get a little bit of color up there, it might be nice. So you want it to come down to the lowest part of the tree. Hold the shift key down, and we're just going to drag that across. Probably can go a little bit like that. Okay, so what I do is I double click on the sky layer over here on the layers panel. Double click on it. And then the underlying layer, you're going to slide this over until it doesn't we're going to go like that. Then you hold the Alt key down and click on it, and then you can feather it a little better. Hit OK. I'm going to lower this down because I don't want it, like I said, I don't want it super crazy. Then I'm going to put a mask on it, which is the rectangle with a dot down below. So a white layer mask, this is for erasing a little bit. So we need a black brush. So click on the brush. Make sure this is black. If it's not, you hit D and then X. Okay, so put it at like 50 for the opacity. And then we're just going to make sure it's not on him. Okay, so if we shut that on and off, okay, so you can see that the natural sun is over on the left. I'm just going to flatten that. So we can go back to my overlays. I have a sun that I like. So remember, if it has a black background, you use the blending mode over here to screen. And then click on the move tool. Okay, make sure it's not on his face, and it's not, so that's good. I'm going to go ahead and flatten that by clicking on the 3 lines and then flatten down here. Okay. So I have an action that I actually sell in my store. Michelle Designer Set. Okay. So if you go to thephotographerscollaborative.com, I sell things for photographers, but she has one called Fluorescent Fingers that I think is the absolute best for backlit ears. Okay, so it comes on an inverted layer mask. So we want a white brush this time. I'm going to put the opacity at 100. So white brush, you hit X to make the foreground white. I'm just going to paint the red off of his ears. Then at a very low opacity, like 20 something, I'm just going to see what it looks like, taking a little bit of the red out of his forehead. Just a little bit. Let's do a little before and after. Maybe I'll lower the opacity to like 80. There we go. Kind of just takes the attention off of his ears. And go ahead and flatten that. Okay, so this, if I'm not mistaken, was shot at f3.2. Let me see if, let me go back and see if she wrote it down for me. Okay, so this was taken at 1/250th of a second at f3.5, but the ISO was on auto, and she didn't know what the ISO decided to go at. So I don't know what the original time of day was, so I can't tell you, you know, what settings to try. But just going on this, so auto anything to me is terrible because the camera is going to decide, and the camera will decide incorrectly, usually. So what I would have done is f3.5 is great. If you wanted it at 1/250th of a second, that's fine. But then you need to dial the ISO in whatever direction to make the little meter, the light meter that you see in your viewfinder, you want it to balance to 0. If it's too far to the right, like this, it's overexposed, which ruins the picture because you can't bring detail back. If it's too far to the left, it's underexposed, which you can salvage if you shoot in RAW. But it's no fun to fix your pictures. You should want to enhance your pictures, but not fix the pictures, because that'll just kill your dollar per hour, and then it kind of, you know, it's not fun to have to fix, especially if you're doing a sitting where they bought 20 pictures. To do this to 20 pictures, you'd have to charge over $1,000 to make a profit, and that's not fun. Okay, so next time, put everything in manual, shoot in RAW, so your file is nice and big, and then if you want to do 3.5, that's great. I would start out at your ISO at maybe 400 if it's going towards golden hour, and then you're going to adjust your shutter speed until the little light meter is at 0. The light meter, you can also see it Shelby, in the picture that you sent, right below, you see the number line, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. You want the little cursor to be at the 0. 0 means it's properly exposed, which is what it's the goal of everything at this point. But yeah, golden hour is key. Make sure the sun is kind of low in the trees. Um, Maybe a little reflector in the front. He's squinting pretty bad, so you want to be somewhere where there's a little bit more shade. Because, squinting is not a good look. But this picture's cute because it has a dog in it. So I hope this helps a little bit. The picture's salvageable. If it's the only one you got, then great. Otherwise, I would play around and find some open shade or wait until the sun was a little lower in the sky. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.